Hi everyone, today we are going to be learning about homeostasis and feedback loops. For this set of notes, I encourage you to use the provided notes worksheet linked with the corresponding assignment. Alternatively, you could write your own set of notes on notebook paper or you could create flashcards. So far in this unit, you've been learning about the different systems associated with the human body. But what happens if stability of these human systems is disrupted? If you take a look at the image, we see a picture of a stone arch. If you remove one of those stones, the whole arch would collapse. The same is true for the human body. If we disrupt one of the human body systems, it could have a cascading or domino effect on the rest of the human body systems and how the body works. So how exactly does the human body maintain a stable system? The process of how a human body maintains a stable system is called homeostasis. All of the organs and organ systems of the human body work together like a well-oiled machine. Disrupt one system and the whole body may be affected. So the process in which organ systems work together to maintain a stable internal environment is called homeostasis. Homeostasis is defined or described as the relatively constant internal conditions that organisms maintain despite changes in internal and external environments, which are called stimulus or stimuli for plural. For example, our body sweats when we feel hot. The stimulus in this case is the heat source, or perhaps exercising. And then our response is to sweat, to try to maintain an internal environment that is cooler than the external environment. Keeping a stable internal environment requires constant adjustments. So how does the body do it? Maintaining homeostasis. Negative feedback loops are the process in which a stimulus produces a response that opposes the original stimulus to return the body to homeostasis. The key things to keep in mind here is that negative feedback loops are the opposite of the stimulus and returns to homeostasis. Take a look at the image provided, starting with the stimulus. Your body detects a stimulus, and a signal in your body is sent to initiate a response. As a result of that response, the stimulus is decreased. This is the core components of a negative feedback loop. Feedback loops rely on a complex, interconnected system in the human body. Let's start with some examples of sensors in your body. This could include your eyes, which detect light, your nose, which detects chemicals, eardrums, which detect sound waves, skin that detects touch, and tongue chemicals. Communication systems in your human body could include the nerves of your nervous system, or chemical hormone messengers that carry signals throughout your body. The control system that determines how to respond to a stimulus as a result of signals sent through the communication center from the sensors, that control system is usually the brain, usually specifically the hypothalamus. There are other rare examples of alternative control systems from time to time. The responders could be, for example, muscles or glands in the body that produce hormones. Let's walk through a non-living example. Take, for example, your home heating system. Heat might be supplied by a furnace in your home. A thermostat sensor will detect changes in the temperature in your home. A computer processes what needs to happen in order to bring the temperature to the ideal set point. And wires connected between the furnace and the thermostat control the response. So in this example, the sensor is the thermostat, and it detects the stimulus, which is a change in the temperature. A computer, like the brain, would process what needs to happen. And a series of communication systems, for example, your nervous system, or in this case, wires, will tell your body, or in this case, the furnace, whether it needs to turn on to produce more heat or turn off to decrease heat. Let's go through some more examples of feedback loops in the human body. Body temperature is perhaps one of the most easily understood negative feedback loops. Let's start on the left side of the diagram. Say your body temperature decreases. Maybe your environment is too cold. The blood vessels will constrict so that heat is conserved. Constrict means to get smaller. The sweat glands do not secrete fluid. Shivering, which is an involuntary contraction of your muscles, will generate heat, which warms the body. As a result of this response, heat will be retained, and this will help return your body to normal body temperature. What if your external environment gets really hot? Your body temperature will rise. Your blood vessels will dilate, which means get bigger, resulting in heat loss to the environment. Sweat glands will secrete fluid. As the fluid evaporates, heat is lost from the body. As a result of this response, heat will be lost to the environment and it will help return your body to the normal body temperature. So again, this is an example of a negative feedback loop. The body tries to oppose the stimulus to return back to homeostasis, which is normal body temperature. Let's talk about blood sugar. The normal blood glucose level for homeostasis is about 90 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood. Say, for example, you eat a cupcake and your blood sugar levels rise. The beta cells of your pancreas will release insulin, which is a chemical messenger, into your bloodstream. That insulin will tell your body cells to absorb more glucose, and your liver will take up the glucose and store it as glycogen. This interconnected process will help reduce your blood glucose level and return to homeostasis. If your blood glucose levels fall and decrease over time, the alpha cells of your pancreas will release the glycogen that was stored when there were high levels. The glucagon will be released, and the liver breaks down glycogen and releases glucose. And that blood glucose will help return the body to homeostasis again. In tomorrow's lesson, you will learn more about the intricate relationship of the feedback loop that controls blood sugar and how it relates to diabetes. Can you predict how the respiratory system would respond to an increase in carbon dioxide concentrations? Pause the video and make a prediction. If there was a high concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood, it would trigger faster breathing. Your lungs would exhale more frequently, which would remove excess carbon dioxide from your body more quickly. How would your body react if you were dehydrated and didn't have enough water? Can you predict the role of the excretory system in helping maintain homeostasis in examples of dehydration? Take a look at the organs listed in the picture. For example, the kidney. What role does the kidney play here? Pause the video and make a prediction. If there was a low level of water in your blood or your body, it would trigger retention of water by your kidneys. The kidneys would produce more concentrated urine, so less water would be lost from your body. Now that we've talked about some examples of negative feedback loops in the human body to maintain homeostasis, let's talk about some examples of where we would actually want to go away from homeostasis. Some situations that your body experiences actually requires that your body does not return to homeostasis. Positive feedback loops are used when the body increases a response in order to move away from homeostasis. This is usually for a shorter period of time. So the keys here are that positive feedback loops increase or amplify a stimulus, and it is the opposite of homeostasis. So if you take a look at the picture, we see that positive feedback means that a stimulus is received, a signal is sent, a response is initiated, and the key here is that the stimulus is increased in a positive fashion. Let's go through some examples of positive feedback loops in the body. Bleeding and blood clotting is a classic example of a positive feedback loop. In this case, we want to accelerate a response, which means we're producing more blood clotting factors than would normally be produced by the human body. So this is how it works, starting here with a wound. Damage to cells in the blood vessel wall releases chemicals that begin the process of blood clotting. So the key here is that we're increasing the amount of chemicals or blood clotting factors that would normally be produced away from homeostasis. These chemicals then start chain reactions in which cells, cell fragments, and soluble proteins in the blood begin to form a clot. Again, it is not normal for the body to produce these blood clotting factors, and that is why this is a positive feedback loop. We're going away from homeostasis. So here, as clotting continues, each step releases chemicals that further accelerate this process. So clotting will continue to accelerate for a short period of time until that clot is officially formed. This escalating process is a positive feedback loop that ends with the formation of a blood clot, which patches the vessel wall and stops the bleeding. So here we again continue to see an increase or amplification of the production of clotting accelerates and blood clotting factors. The process of childbirth is another classic example of a positive feedback loop. This process is initiated when the head of the baby pushes against the cervix. Once the baby's head is pushing against the cervix, nerve impulses that are detecting that stimulus transmit information to the brain. The mother's brain will stimulate the pituitary gland, which secretes oxytocin, which is an endocrine hormone messenger. Oxytocin will be carried in the bloodstream to the uterus, and that oxytocin will further stimulate uterine contractions and pushes the baby towards the cervix. So the idea here is that we're continuing to increase this oxytocin production, which thus increases the stimulus to push the baby out. Once the baby is pushed out, the oxytocin will no longer be produced and the body will then return to homeostasis. But during the process of childbirth, this process is a positive feedback loop because of the continued production of oxytocin to increase the stimulus of the uterine contractions. Summarize what you've learned and answer some practice questions. The answers to these questions will be at the end of all of the questions. Which of these images is a positive feedback loop and which is a negative feedback loop? Pause the video and see if you can figure it out. Match the 4 descriptors to the type of feedback. Pause the video and attempt this question. Match the examples to the type of feedback. Pause the video. Let's check your answers and see how you did. The figure on the left represented a negative feedback loop. Because a stimulus is received, the signal is sent and a response is initiated, and the stimulus is decreased and returns to homeostasis. So this is an example of a negative feedback loop. In comparison, when we have a stimulus that is increased, that is our positive feedback loop. The opposite of homeostasis is positive feedback. The opposite of the stimulus is the negative feedback. If we increase or amplify a stimulus, that is positive feedback. And if our goal is to return to homeostasis, that is negative feedback. Match the examples to the type of feedback. Body temperature is one that we want to return to homeostasis, so that is a negative feedback loop. Childbirth is a temporary acceleration of oxytocin production and contractions. That is positive feedback because we are going away from homeostasis. Blood clotting is the temporary production of increased amounts of blood clotting factors in order to form a blood clot. That is going away from homeostasis, so that is positive feedback. And last but not least, blood sugar. We want our blood sugar to be maintained at a homeostatic level, so that is controlled by a negative feedback loop. In order to practice this more, we encourage you to use the Human Systems Quizlet set that we provided. Go ahead and return to the daily agenda to see if you have any other assignments to do for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful.